All right, welcome folks. We'll give folks just a second to jump on and we'll get started.
Well, let me first of all thank all of you for joining us today. And I really want to thank everybody who is tuning in to talk about my new plan. I've just come out with a big, bold plan on criminal justice reform and what we need to do here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As you all know, while I was governor, this was an issue that was so important to me morally. This is something I leaned in on every day. And especially the issue of restoration of rights. I was so proud to restore the rights of 173,000 Virginians, more than any governor in the history of America. And we all know what happened. The Republican leadership sued me, took me to the Supreme Court, and then sued me again for contempt of court. That didn't stop me. And today in Virginia, there's now more than 200,000 people who have their rights been restored and now can be full citizens of the Commonwealth and can vote and can take part in our democratic process. And it was so important, but I also leaned in on a lot of other big issues, reformed our juvenile detention population, reduced that by 2/3, closed down one of the gigantic maximum security prisons we had for our young kids, brought rehabilitative services in, courses in, took the Confederate flag, banned it from the license plates here in Virginia. I banned the box on state forms. Try to do everything that I could do as governor to make sure that Virginia was treating everybody with dignity and respect. And that's what this plan that I've just laid out does. It takes Virginia to the next level. We've made progress, but we have a long, long way to go. And we need to continue to lean in with big, bold ideas to take Virginia forward and really correct a lot of the wrongs of the past. And to many members of the Black and brown communities who have disproportionately been affected. You think of the African-American population, about 20% here in Virginia, and yet 55% of those that are incarcerated here in Virginia. And I could go through statistic after statistic. But you know what? It's time for new, bold leadership. And I want to thank everybody for being with me here today and really appreciate them joining with me today. We have Travis on with me. We have Kimberly, you can see there. We've got Paul. And we've got Deidre, who has been very involved with the Innocence Project. Each and every one of these individuals know the importance of second chances. Each of the individuals has their own personal story. And I'm just proud that I was a part of their individual stories. And we just need to do more. And I just want to thank them for being with us today. If you have a chance, go to Terry for Virginia. The whole plan is laid out there. But I am so fired up to take Virginia to the next level, to treat everybody with dignity and respect. We got to look at from the arrest to sentencing to rehabilitation. We can't base this on punishment. We have to rehabilitate folks so they get back in their part of our society. So, I'm excited about this. And I just want to thank the folks. So let me open it up to everybody on the call. And I talk a lot about second chances and something I leaned in as governor. But I'd really love specifically for you, Travis, and for Kimberly and Paul, to tell us your own personal stories and really what do second chances mean to you? And Taylor, why don't we start with you, Travis? And then we'll go
yes,
to
sir.
Kimberly, and then we'll go to Paul. But Travis, you go first, and then Deidre at the end. Obviously, your work at the Innocence Project, sort of what all the people you talk to and what really second chances means to so many of the folks that you deal with on a daily basis. So, okay, Travis.
Yes, sir. My name is Travis May, and second chances to me are life. I feel like second chances, they spring the spirit of hope. And if you have ever been in a situation, no matter the extreme or the minute, if you ever had a sense of hopelessness, is an overwhelming feeling. At the age of 16, I was introduced to the criminal justice system. Unfortunately, I made some bad decisions as a youth. I chose to participate in some armed robberies, to carry firearms, and I really didn't have an understanding of myself, my future, or my worth. I felt like my understanding of freedom at that time was nobody telling me what to do. I'm a 16-year-old boy, and I have it all figured out. But I soon realized that I was involved in some things that I could not foresee changing my future and the futures of others in the time to come. I found myself in the Virginia Beach City Jail, just have been certified as an adult, meaning that the charges that I did as a juvenile would now be judged as an adult. I received a sentence of 165 years with no parole under Virginia's 3-strike law in 1994. I did not have any ability to reference what that meant in my life. I had no reference for it. So my worth was wrapped up in the amount of time that I had. I seen my worth in my sentence. My sentence said that I would die in prison no matter how good or reflective my behavior. So I reflected that belief pattern. So my first 7 years was spent in total despair, total hopelessness, and those things turned into anger because I feared dying in prison. After my first 7 years in prison, I reached the bottom. I tried to escape, just wanting some sense of difference, some sense of relief. I felt like I had no chance to ever redeem myself. I was absent of any process of redemption. So I tried to escape, didn't make it far, ended up getting 55 years added on to my 165-year sentence. So now I'm in Virginia Department of Corrections with 220 years, and I've been sent to long-term segregation. It was in segregation that I decided to try to understand how did I make a bad situation even worse. And I wanted to understand why my family still believed in me. And so that became my focal point every morning that I woke up. I just wanted to understand how I could be a better representation of who I am to my family. Instead of bringing them pain, I wanted to bring them inspiration and motivation that no matter what we may be going through out here, our loved one is in there doing the best that he can. So that became my motivation. And as that started to be my purpose every morning, I started to understand the limitations of my thinking. I started to understand that I have now been put into a system that doesn't recognize the value of me. I'm just being punished for something I did as a child. So I seen that I was surrounded by many other individuals like myself that had the chance that I did not have. So I wanted to understand why they weren't connecting to that second chance of being able to go home, and they appeared to be more angry than myself. So as I went through that process of trying to understand others, it allowed me to understand myself more, and I started to have a sense of hope. And I would tell you, Governor McAuliffe, when you first took office and you started to speak about the power of second chances, it was at the perfect time of my transition into understanding who I was as a man and being able to put it into place and continue to move forward in the purpose that I had deemed for my life. And little did I know that we would cross paths in a way that I'm still overwhelmed by. And 24 years and 10 months later, I was blessed with a pardon from your office. I remember the day that it happened. I came into the pod from work and I received 3 sentences from somebody I did not know. And the sentences said, "Is your name Travis Hassan Kenyelle May? If so, congratulations, the governor gave you a pardon today. Please call me. I'm a reporter from the Virginia Pilot." My life has not been the same since.
Wow.
And I wanted to make it meaningful, the second chance. So now I want to involve myself with juveniles who were the same as myself, getting pulled into situations and systems that's beyond their understanding and control. And I want to be a source of hope and light in their lives. So in essence, that's a little bit of what's going on with Travis.
Well, thank you, Travis. What a story.
Yes.
Thank you for everything you've done. And
thank you for making it so.
No, you bet. We're just getting warmed up, Travis.
Absolutely.
You got some more action ready to go?
Yes.
All right, good.
Without question.
Sleep when you're dead, Travis. We're just warming up.
I love it. I love it.
Right,
and I'm with
fair
it.
enough. Kimberly?
Yes, Governor.
How are you?
I'm blessed. How are you?
Great, thank you.
So what second chances meant to me? Given the opportunity to leave prison and start my life over, after being sentenced to 6 years for welfare fraud, my children taken away, coming off of a drug addiction, and just recognizing how bad my life had gotten. So it was actually a blessing for me to enter into the system, because not only getting clean, getting my rights back, getting my children back, and seeing how I could better myself in society. So this second chance gave me such a will to live again, because in one point in time, I wanted to check out. So I'm thankful for all the help that I've gotten. And for me coming out, it allowed me to start a business and to help people like me. I never saw this coming as far as starting this business, but God had my footsteps already ordered. And with the help of you, Governor, and just doing all of the pardons, it's been such a blessing. It has afforded so many people like me the opportunities to get better housing, seek out jobs, and that which you just got rid of, checking the box off in those applications, that was such a hindrance.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you saw that down the line for us.
You bet.
Absolutely.
So getting rid of that just gives us new hope.
And one thing we Kimberly instituted, which was important, everybody in the system, we gave them a state ID card. Now you think that's not a big deal, but we realized though, when you re-enter, if you don't have some kind of ID, you can't get a bank account, you can't. And I didn't realize when we instituted that program, and I remember I went with Rick Holcomb, who's our DMV director, we went out to do the first cards, what that really meant to so many people in addition to everything else, but just a simple process of giving everybody a state ID card for when they walked out.
Yes, that's very important. You can't, everybody is stopping, you need a driver's license, you need some type of formal ID. And leaving prison, they give you a paper ID.
Yeah.
But where can you actually take that to when you're trying to get a job?
That's right.
They want something valid coming from DMV. So
right.
that was really a good call on your part.
You bet.
And seeing that.
All right, Paul, how are you, buddy?
What's the deal, alligator wrestler? How y'all doing?
Good. We're doing great today, man. Great to see you again.
All right. So likewise, man. So I first want to, say to not just, the panel, but also to, the listeners. I want to make something real clear. So they will see that there's no bias here. I'm personally neither, a Democrat or Republican. I'm pro-right. I'm not pro-democratic or pro-Republican. I'm pro-right. Whoever addresses the issues of the people. And the people that I'm talking about are not just the people that we all know about in society or throughout this great Commonwealth. I'm also talking about those men and women and children that are behind the wall, that are incarcerated, that really don't have a voice, except for people like myself and Travis and Kimberly and the likes of us, and Prince Bunn. I want to just say, what does, second chances mean to me? Well, I'll tell you this. Imagine a kid being gone for, 20 something years, and the whole time he's gone, his mother's at home and she cooks and, she makes sure, every weekend she cooks and the family comes over. And she always tell one of the kids, hey, go to the pantry and pull that and go in there and get this out, or go get the sugar, or go get the flour and bring it to her. So they'll come out and they'll say, hey, mama, the light bulb don't work in that pantry. And she'll say, well, don't worry about that. My baby gonna change it one day when he get home. That's what she would say. So the very first thing with that second chance of me coming home and getting to mommy after we hug and we cry, and I go in that back and I look in that pantry and I get that chair and pull it up and I change that light bulb for my mother. I mean, just to see her face and her belief that one day her son is coming home. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't, just talk about one side of it. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the victims as well. Because I know a lot of people are saying, well, here comes this reform, here comes this and that. But what about the victims of this crime? I promise you, they are relevant. Inside of the prisons, I co-facilitated all of the state mandated programs for over 5 years. One of my favorite courses was one that was called Victims Impact. where we get a uphand personal approach and find empathy in our circumstances with the victims of our crime. Now I'm on a level where I speak, not a motivational speaking, where I go across the country and I speak. And most of the time, the very first thing that I do is ask a person to say 3 times, and that's the name Julius Jeggedy, because that was the victim of my crime. And I ask them to remember that name more than they remember me, because that's just how important it is to me. So I will not, and there is many individuals that will not take their one opportunity at freedom for granted, because we remember the victims of our crime. Today, I'm wearing a shirt that says 1994 because it was the end of an era. The era of me committing crimes in the street, because this is the year that I was locked up, but it also was the year that a new me was born. But most important, 1994 was the last year that parole was given to individuals in the Commonwealth of Virginia. 1995, it was taken away. And here I've been challenging Democrats for a minute now by saying things like, in different, symposiums and conversations, that now that the Democrats have control of the House and the Senate, totally blue state, but still that Republican stronghold, that flag that's still blowing in the wind of no parole, a Republican stronghold. Well, now is an opportunity to put a damper in the evil empire, if you will, by removing and reestablishing parole for every person in the Department of Corrections. And bear in mind that you have a parole board that I am fortunate and blessed. And this is where you come in, sir. Here was a man that came in and took a look at some things and seen that parole was at a snail pace for so long. And I was there and I'd seen men that already. In fact, that when the last letter every time that I was turned down for parole, I would write a letter. And that letter would say, thank you for the opportunity to be seen again. Blase, blase, I know it was difficult. Next year, blase, blase, I'll keep putting my best foot forward. Well, on my last letter, I said all of the above. And Adrian Bennett and Linda Bryant and all, they still laugh about this letter today. The last thing I said on that last letter, I said, P.S., next year, I'm going to make it even more difficult for you to tell me no, because I knew I was ready. I knew what that rehabilitation felt like. I knew what redemption felt like. And I knew that I had a purpose. And inside of that prison, I'm surrounded by a lot of men that just need that one opportunity, but they just have too much damn time. Yeah. Thank you guys for letting me share that.
Thank you. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Oh, thank you. And let me turn over to Deidre now, who heads up the Innocence Project here, works at the University of Virginia in Virginia. And I love the Innocence Project. When I was governor, she and Jason Flom and others would be in my office all the time. And, they brought a lot of cases to me. I'll never forget Michael McAllister, who was on death row and who I pardoned, let out. Finally, somebody admitted to the crime. And I'll never forget it. When they brought Michael into the lineup, they said that the person involved had a red check shirt on. So Michael was brought into a lineup. He was the only person that was told to wear a red check shirt. So I want to thank the Innocence Project for the great work that they do. Deidre.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I wish I could take credit for all of that, but the organization is enormous. New York has opened the first one, and now there's a whole bunch of us. And it takes a village is really true. My partner, Jennifer Givens, and we have a fellow from Jason Flom, Juliet Hatchett, and we work together, and they do all the work and I take all the credit. That's how things go. So we defend innocent people who are locked up, and I could talk about that forever because there's way too many. But I like to think that we help everyone who's been charged or convicted, because there's like 7 common causes of wrongful convictions, right? And ineffective assistance of counsel is one, jailhouse informants, junk science, prosecutorial police misconduct, and bad eyewitness IDs, like you just mentioned. And in exposing those things, we provide help for everyone, because the reforms will affect everyone, not just the innocent. They're for everybody. So there's wrongful convictions, and then there's bad convictions, and they happen, and people get too much time. And so public defenders, they can't do their jobs without more money, and I so appreciate that you're going to address that. court-appointed lawyers, what they get for each criminal case they take is they couldn't possibly do the things that we do. And so we come along 20 years later and uncover the things that should have been uncovered back in the day and could have been had they had more money and more time. And so I wish it was a complicated fix, but it's a simple fix. They just have to get paid more. And then a lot of those things that I just listed wouldn't have happened, right? And so then people get wrongfully convicted and need pardons. And then they get to the pardon situation. And I don't think anyone disagrees that we need reform in the pardon situation because like for instance, and I won't go on forever, but we have a client who was, we litigated for many, many years. He'd been in for 32 years. We are at the Fourth Circuit. The Fourth Circuit said in their opinion, yeah, we can keep litigating this case, but it's so obvious that this guy is innocent that he should get a pardon and you should go to the governor. And so we did. We wrote a pardon petition and we went to the governor and he got a letter 2 weeks later that said, we will not get to your case for 2 years. Please don't call us, we'll call you. There's nothing more you can add to what you've submitted. And it was signed by a pardon specialist. And you know, if that's the state of affairs, that somebody that the Fourth Circuit thinks is innocent, and that's the answer, something's broken. And so I think your proposal to have a pardon director is fabulous. And albeit, if you want, no, I'm kidding. But I just think that's an enormous fix, and it's just gonna change everything. And not just for innocent people, for all these people have pardon petitions pending for years, and we can't find out anything because there's no transparency. So I really appreciate the things you're going to address.
And listen, one of the challenges I always face as governor is, you know, we didn't have enough investigators, and they kept saying, well, we don't have people to go through. Well, then hire more investigators. How complicated is that? Put more money in the budget for this. I'd go back. Don't keep putting up walls in issues. Fix it. Put more money and get more investigators. So finally, I put in more money, and former state troopers, we got involved as investigators, and you know, we can fix all this. If there's a will, there's a way, and you just have to be passionate. So for me, it was a big moral issue. I remember Lenny Singleton, who's a man who pardoned Lenny. You know, he went to a party on a Saturday night. He tried cocaine for the first time in his life. He got addicted. And over the course of the next 7-8 days, he committed a series of robberies, 7-8 robberies. Nobody was ever injured, but he only had them every day. He was trying to steal $50-$60 for his drug habit. Lenny, for $511, was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 110 years for $511 and nobody injured. Really? So, you know, you can tell I get fired up on this issue, but let me ask a couple questions. So, Travis, let me ask you,
Yes,
because
sir.
you've done so much work with mentoring young people. And one of the things I call for in my plan is to stop these prosecutors who can take these kids and then try them as adults with no judicial oversight really at all. It's really horrible. So I established a new procedure for that, and also sort of an office for returning citizens. So when people come back, so talk to me a little bit, because you are a big mentor on youth and how this impacts their lives.
Well, first, I will say that the proposal to stop the certification process being in the hands of the prosecutor is an awesome idea. I suffered from a prosecutor deciding that my charges needed to be treated on an adult level. When you take away the ability of change, and you spoke to this in my case when you spoke to the reasons why you chose to give me a pardon. When you're dealing with children, and you said this, and I agree, I see it every day. Our children have the most resilient spirit of any. And if they're not allowed the opportunity for that resilience to be manifested, then what does it matter? How are we serving the children? The juvenile justice system is supposed to serve the individuality of the child. The child is seen as this precious, impressionable thing, but that you lose that once you go to the adult system, you know, especially at that particular time. So I feel like that's an awesome idea to have it be more in the hands of the judge to decide whether this should continue to be a child or let's ignore a process and make him an adult. Secondly, the Office for Returning Citizens is very important because when you're transitioning from an institution such as the Department of Corrections, you are prepared in reentry to have you set up to be able to pull on resources to allow you the ability to come out and be a productive member of society. But when you have an overload of resources, you don't know how to apply these resources. So they become areas of anxiety, areas of stress. And a lot of times people will start to disappear in those emotions and start to go to what they are familiar with. And when you have someone there that will help assist in those moments when situations are becoming overwhelming, when you have to go on a computer and apply for aid, you know, these things can make people deny that help and then get into a desperate situation. So to have in place someone that can walk people through the process and help them process their emotions and anxieties through the transition is a beautiful thing. And I'm gonna end with this. A transition is the most beautifulest thing that we can be involved in, but it's the most scariest because we're not where we were and we're not quite where we're gonna be. So it's the most vulnerable place to be. And if you can have strength and purpose connected to your vulnerability, success is inevitable.
You're right. And I always try to convey, if we spend the money on the front end for reentry services and actually puts one person responsible, because, you know, state government's a big, huge 110, 120,000 state employees. People at the end of the day have to be accountable. Somebody has to be able to say, we got to do this, this, and this. And the point I always try to make to the legislature, if we spend money and we give people the tools necessary to come back, re-enter, and be, you know, successful parts of society, it saves the state money. Forget the moral issue is important, but it also from an economic sense, because we spend about 32 to 35,000 per prisoner every year. And if we spend money, and I was very proud by the end of my term, we had the lowest recidivism rate of any state in the United States of America.
Absolutely.
I can prove to you that this actually works. And the other thing as it relates to the idea, I don't think most Virginians know that a prosecutor solely can take a kid and put him in the adult system without any judicial review at all. No judge involved at all. We should have judicial review to allow that to happen. But Kimberly, let me ask you a question. You know, I also call for, we're going to legalize marijuana here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I talk about expungement and getting these things off of people's records, which I think is so important. So if you could talk to me about really, you know, the difficulties once you come out, if you got these things on your record, how hard it is to do the different things and how important really job training is for when you come out so that you can be back successful, you know, part of society.
Well, when you're coming out and say that you have welfare fraud or any of the nonviolent that are on your record, when you go to get an apartment, to apply for a good job, a good paying job, not the minimum wage jobs that are what, $7.25, jobs that'll be able to afford you to live in better housing, afford you to take care of your family better. It's really hard if you don't get that expungement of your record. And I know it's just to, as they say, it's to hide all of your wrongdoings from the public. But these are hindrances for us. If we go in to say, hey, I'd like to be a secretary, and you have that box there, have you ever been convicted of a felon? And you have to check it off and say yes, then they want to know what for. If all that goes away, they can look at you as the person that you become, not of who you used to be. So changing and getting all that expunged from your record just gives you a new way of starting over your life. Now, as far as getting training for people coming home, I think that's essential, because as long as you the time that you spend behind the wall, so many things change out here. So you want to retrain. And even though they have different things inside of the prisons, like carpentry, auto, these things are kind of like geared towards men. But how about for the ladies that are coming out? We want to do things like sitting in an office setting. We want to go and take up phlebotomy, drawing blood. These things stop us from entering into that field because of our records. I like to see all that change and go away. So with me setting up different schoolings for things, and this is how I found out that I couldn't pay for the schooling for some of the ladies coming home, because that's one of the things phlebotomy, if you have a record, you can't go to school.
Yep.
You can't be allowed to see other people's records. You can't be allowed to draw blood.
Yep.
And how is that changing society, allowing us in to make a new life? That's stopping us. So definitely, Governor, we want all that to be fixed so we can live normal lives. We can feel good about ourselves again. Getting back into society,
Yep.
Society, yes, sees us as a whole of who we used to be.
Yep.
But now we come home and we want to be that new person that we grew up behind the walls. We want to be happy with ourselves. Our family wants to be happy seeing us being productive citizens.
You bet. How long, Kimberly, did it take you to get that feeling back again that you were that new person that you were striving to be?
It took me maybe 4 years, because of every time I go in to put in an application, whether it was at McDonald's or whatever, it was like, well, I had to settle for this because my record would not allow me to go forward. So then how could I make Kimberly Tucker whole again?
Yep.
Reform to this. So I just made up my mind, I'm going to do better, have a different mindset. So I started seeking out, what should I do as far as making my new life? And God had given me instructions prior to me leaving. I was to be a business owner and I was to only hire felons. So being in business for 24 years, that's what I have been accomplishing. Finding new ways to get people their badges, which
Yep.
is so hard to get identification, to get into different jobs. So
Good.
you've helped a lot with that, Governor. And I'm just looking forward to seeing so much more of your work being
Right.
accomplished.
Thanks, Kimberly. We're just starting, as I say.
Yes, sir.
And Paul, so you were paroled in 2017. Obviously, big issue is giving people second chances. You had your rights restored. I'd just like you to convey to folks why it was so important for you to be able to vote again and what that meant to you internally going forward.
Well, being inside a controlled environment, man, for 23 years, man, you see a lot of things. You watch a lot of TV and you just be like, man, if I could just, boy, if I could, man, when I get my opportunity, especially when 45 was there, man, it's not one of single a day that people didn't wake up saying, man, I can't wait to get my rights back. These are guys that's incarcerated, couldn't wait. And it was so brilliant on your part, man. And I'm really in appreciation of what you've done, to help, springboard that opportunity to have our rights restored, once off supervision. I would have really loved to see, that really continued by, or somebody or this administration to take that baton that you passed, and make it so that as soon as we're off supervision, it's automatic. And I was pleased to read that that's one of your goals, to make sure that it's automatic. Soon as we, everybody don't have transportation, and some guys be like, I'm trying to get over here to get to the state trooper thing, and I want to go and try to get my rock. It's a trial for some people. Not everybody are ready for this, especially coming out of prison for over 20, 30, and even 40 years. So for it to automatically be reinstated, it would be a beautiful feeling. Me and my right hand, Prince Bun, man, I wish he was here today. He was so ecstatic about, receiving, that paperwork and saying that his rights were restored, man, that, it was like a moment of crying, because we know what people went through, to, give us an opportunity to even, have the process of being able to vote, man. So it was very important, and it holds merit in our lives, man, especially for the returning citizen that, wants to get out here and describe our relevance.
Yeah. And I don't think many of probably the folks on the Zoom, many people don't realize that 39 states in America, it's automatic. There's no governor involved. There's nothing. Automatic. It's the 10 southern states. And this is clearly a remnant of the Jim Crow laws. And this was actually put in our Constitution in 1902. With the deliberate purpose of disenfranchisement. So, went on for, as I say, I was able to stand 114 years later and say, new man in town here. We're going to shake this up. So I've called for, we put in and change the Constitution of Virginia. So we'll have to pass this session, succeeding session, and then go to the public in 2022 to be automatic. So that is something that we are now pushing now. And we just got, as I say, in 39 states, it's automatic. We got to do what the other states are doing. So I just want you to know that, Paul, we're on top of this. And Deidre, let me ask you the last question, if I could. So I also call for more public defenders, because we don't have enough public defenders in certain areas of Virginia. It's just sad that everybody's entitled to counsel. And in many places, they don't have that access to counsel. We just don't have enough public defenders. And I lay this out in the plan, and people say, well, how are you going to pay for it? Well, the good news is, hopefully the legislature this year is going to end capital punishment here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And if they end that, we spend about $3.9 million a year on capital defenders. We can use that money to go get more public defenders. But no matter what happens, talk about the importance of having these folks on the front lines early in the stage as public defenders.
Absolutely. My husband has been the director of the center that represents death row inmates in Virginia, and I hope that we've just put him out of business.
Yeah.
And absolutely, those people are incredibly well trained, because you have to be, you have special training to become a capital public defender. You can't just be an attorney and do that. And so having those people and that money, and it's a way more money to do a capital trial than it is to do a normal felony trial. That money is absolutely essential for public defenders who, when we go to court with our cases and we wait with our students and watch, and people come in and meet their clients for the first time on the day of their trial, which of course is going to turn out to be a plea bargain, it's really appalling to see. And it's not the public defender's fault, right? They have way more cases, and there's limited court time, and very few people go to trial, which, because of what I do, I see what happens when you don't go to trial. 25% of the people who are innocent have pled guilty to the cases because they were overcharged, or they were terrified, or they were going to get too long of a sentence. So public defenders are right there on the front line, and they could put me out of business too, and I welcome it, right? So there wouldn't be as many wrongful convictions, and there wouldn't be people getting these ridiculous sentences. Travis's sentence, ridiculous, right? We have people in our client who got 100 years in a day, and we have 132 years for armed robberies where no one got hurt, and we have we just have ridiculous sentences, and the time for that is way past, because as you can see right here, these are some of the most productive, inspiring people right here, and they didn't need to be locked up all that time to become that way either. And so the helping public defenders is just, there's no, in a system that calls itself adversarial, for prosecutors to have more money and resources than defense attorneys just doesn't make any sense, right? Lady Justice is supposed to have her hands equal, right? And so we need to make them equal, and I would love for them to have, the resources that I have to prove these cases. So thank you.
Thank you, Deidre. Well, I want to thank all of you for being on the Zoom with us today. Thank you for all the great work you do, and Deidre, everybody at the Innocence Project, thank you. And really, to Travis and Kimberly and Paul, I want to thank all of you. I mean, the point I always try to make, we're talking about real people and real lives. And we want everybody to be successful and happy. And you can't do that if you really treat people like second-class citizens for the rest of their lives. These three individuals represent so many people, not only in Virginia, but all over the country, who just want a second chance to be productive members, and we owe it to them. And I do want to thank the three of them for really being role models and inspirations to all of us. Because, you know, sometimes in politics, some politicians don't like to take chances. I, of course, love to take chances and lean in to help people. And people say, well, you may shouldn't do this. Someone gets out and does something. Forget all that. This is about human dignity. This is a moral issue. And we have a long, long way to go in Virginia to get us to where we need to be. And because of these three individuals and the work of Dietrich and the Innocence Project, we're making progress, but we cannot give up. We cannot take our foot off the gas. And we're fighting for you every single day. And if you get a chance, everybody, go to Terry for Virginia. I've laid out the whole plan there. And I just thank you for being with us today. And to you, finally, let me thank you, Travis, Kimberly, and Paul, and Dietrich. Thank you for being with us today. Let's go. We're just getting warmed up. Game on.
Let's
Thank you
get
for
it.
having us.
Let's get it. Absolutely.